5,543 players. That's the highest population Outlands has ever had, and that's really wild to me. Now, as far as an average, it's 3,300. I can remember back in 2021, I did a video and I was super excited to see that 1,500 players were online at any given time. Any given moment on a server called Ultima Online Outlands, there's roughly 15, maybe even 1,600 people online. It's wild to me to see how much Outlands has grown in that time frame. Think about that. It's a wizard game. A 30-year-old wizard game came out. The core of the game came out in 1997. Here we are in 2024, coming up on 2025, and there's this many players still playing it. It's actually growing at this point. Here on Outlands, there's a large-scale event almost every single month of the year, and there has been for almost 6 years. Not only that, there's balancing things going on all the time. There is new deco for your houses, as well as drip to wear on your paper doll and your character. So with that, though, that asks the question, with all that content over this long of a time span, 6 years on Outlands, is it too late to start? Are players so progressed that you stand absolutely no chance? Is the economy just filled with so much gold that you'll never be able to afford anything in the game? With that, guys, sit back, grab yourself a beer, and let's talk about it. So in trying to understand this, let's break this down into 3 different categories. The first one, learning curve. The second one, player vertical progression. And the third one, let's go with economy. Let's start with the learning curve. Ultima Online, at its core, it just isn't easy to learn. The controls aren't new player friendly, and the fact that you set them up yourself means you have to learn what you can do before you even assign a button on your keyboard or mouse to do it. With that said, I did make a new player video 101 that should help with the extremely basic functions of the game. Beyond that though, there are the player progression systems. You know, like your template, aspect, codexes, mastery chains, and now even red light system. It can definitely be a bit overwhelming for someone new playing. That said, I think we can all agree when playing a new RPG game, one of the best things about the game is that sense of understanding that comes from learning something new about that game. We've all played a new MMORPG and had no idea what was going on as we trottled our way through killing monsters, eventually learning things that increased our player power substantially or made something much easier. This really isn't any different. Now, as an important note, and as previously stated, the community is extremely active, especially in the public Discord. General chat kicking the shit through the day, and the new player channel acting as if it's their job to answer questions of the new players. It's really uncanny. It seems like the community is on the edge of their seat to help new players. And I don't mean in the sense of, oh, you're new here, let me give you $1 million gold check and some resources to help you on your way. I mean in the sense of like helping you understand the game, leading the horse to the water. It's not just there either in the Discord. Many guilds have deemed themselves the new player guild. One guild called New has been around since basically server birth. Another one, NPS, is another great guild that will take new players straight from the beginning and show them how to play, knowing full well that they may leave for an in-game guild in the near future. There are plenty more of them out there, and they post almost daily in the guild recruiting channel of the Discords. Obviously, the best way to learn the game is jump right into the community, asking questions as you go and referencing the wiki as well. Yep, you heard me right, the wiki. This wiki, once again upheld by approved members of the community and monitored by staff, is basically the encyclopedia of Outlands. Let's not forget tutorial videos from Star Gaming. In conclusion, the learning curve is definitely there. Once you get past the archaic controls this game has at its core, it's no more of a learning curve than any other MMORPG that you may find on the internet to play today. The important thing is to lean into the community and not just be a hermit. Let's talk about number 2, the next topic of discussion, player vertical progression. This game is a very vertical progression game in your player power, meaning my character gets more and more powerful the more monsters I kill, assuming I have the resources to help that along, of course, but more on resources later. So with that, some would ask, are other players just so far ahead that I can't keep up? Some have been playing since server launch for over 5 years, multiple hours a day. First off, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like anything in life, the more time you put into something, the more you get out of it, which is how it should be. That being said though, this game doesn't have any benchmarks that gatekeep you from doing content. Bosses have absolutely no DPS checks like in traditional MMORPGs similar to World of Warcraft. There aren't any group finders where people will kick you out of a group if you aren't doing X amount of damage per second. But I mean, sure, there are different levels of difficulty in monsters, but even a freshly GM'd mage without aspect can be of use in a level 3 dungeon or at a boss fight with a group, meaning that new player can play with his advanced friends, all the while during solo time find and fight monsters more suitable for him to solo kill. In terms of PvP, the player progression you have done is null and void. PvP typically comes down to template, the environment, and of course the skill level in PvP. To speak more on this, once again, new players join the server daily and seem to fit right in, as they had been here for a long time with little issue. Most of those being the ones that, like spoken about in the first section, jump into the community asking questions as they go with an open mind. This really isn't like in the old days, if you played the old original UO where you get your skills to 7-time GM and then you just kind of build your massive empire. There is so much more to it, but at the same time, you're not necessarily held back in things that you can do based on where you're at in that vertical progression. And lastly, and probably the most asked one, number 3, the economy. Let's be frank, guys. 6 years of a game where gold is constantly generated with both a growing population and a growing power creep, there is always going to be more gold added to the server. Monsters and dungeons dropping thousands of gold at a time in certain spots. One thing to show the inflation of prices over the last year is the outlandmalls.com charts. Here, we can see the price in August of board commodities were roughly 75,000 gold. Now, they're 95,000. Now, we can look at the iron ingots that were 90,000 gold last year and 110,000 gold this year, both increasing in price just over 24%. I would demonstrate with cores or skill scrolls, but those tend to fluctuate based on hot templates and balancing rather than just inflation. So back to what I was saying, does that mean that the economy is broken for a new player? Not necessarily. Keep in mind, when something drops in the game, it sells for the inflated amount as well. Furthermore, items like master crafting diagrams and arcane scrolls have stayed around the same amount over the last year and even decreased over the life of the server. I actually remember running around in the wilderness back on my first character, which was a mace bard, right? And I found a giant spider, barded it, killed it, and it dropped a master crafting diagram. Now back then, that bad boy sold for 75,000 gold. It was great. I actually used that money to buy other things and then sell them at a higher value, playing the market a little bit. And that's really how I got started on my initial investment into the game. The same could be said if an expensive core such as an arcane core drops. You can easily sell it to pay for your codex and more. Or like I did, play the market. Another thing you can do is hit the mountains and mine 5,000 ingots for 110,000 gold. You can go to Crawl Dungeon where people are farming experience and not even looting the monsters, scavenging for a few hours. I've seen people make tons and tons of gold per hour doing this. There are tons of ways to make easy money as a new player, so I don't think that really is too big of a factor. Outlands also has different gold sinks like the weekly lottery or the house lotteries or just different random mount lotteries that help to combat the economy growing in inflation with all the new players, higher gold dropping monsters, and all that good stuff. I'd be curious to hear your take on these things as well as anything else I may have missed out. Tell me why you disagree with me. Tell me why you agree with me. Outlands continues to grow and new players are joining and sticking around daily. Let us know in the comments below why. Shout out to the Patreons, the channel members, and you for liking this video, as it helps for discoverability for myself, but more importantly, UO Outlands and my fellow streaming community, as well as content creators. Speaking of streaming, come by the live streams most evenings at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube, as well as Twitch, Twitter, Kick, and Facebook. That's right, 5 different platforms for you to choose from. Other than that, guys, I'll see you next week. Pwn Star Gaming out.